Cardinals running back Trey Benson is currently being drafted as RB 17, but that won't be his price at this time next year. We'll explain why on this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Kate Madjuk. You can follow her on Twitter at Kate Madjuk. You can also read her at Pro Football Focus and Behind the Steel Curtain. On today's show, we're taking a look at three running backs who are set to have their average draft position ADP rise significantly over the next 12 months. And let's start with a rookie, one of our favorites, Trey Benson from the Arizona Cardinals. Kate, what do you got?
There might not be a running back that I enjoyed watching more here throughout the pre-draft and post-draft process than Trey Benson. And my goodness, Marcus, did he land in an absolutely perfect position? So right now, year one, we might not be overly excited for Trey Benson's year one value. And I think that's very well reflected in his pricing as the RB 17 on average in Dynasty League football ADP heading into the following month coming out of the draft. But Marcus, there might not be a better pathway to immediate workhorse production after this year, given the fact that we're looking at James Conner entering his final year with the Arizona Cardinals. He just turned 29 years old. This is a running back we already know has had health issues. Trey Benson was already one of my favorite prospects, but I can't envision a more perfect pathway to year one heading into year two production and a workhorse role than Trey Benson has here with the Arizona Cardinals.
Let's talk about the player, first of all. We loved him coming out of Florida State. He was incredibly efficient. He was productive for 2 years. Now, he didn't get a ton of work because Florida State was trying to make sure that he stayed healthy. But if you're watching with us on YouTube right now, 96th percentile rushing grade according to Pro Football Focus, 100th percentile missed tackles forced per attempt. That was number one in the country. 91st percentile yards after contact per attempt. And then the fumble rate, 100% percentile. He didn't fumble the football at all. So the metrics were good. The athleticism was off the charts. I think everybody was surprised to see him test this well. And no, he doesn't go in the second round, but he goes at the top of the third round, which is fine in terms of draft capital. So I think as a prospect, Kate, we really like him, and this is the type of prospect we want to take shots on. So before I talk about the situation, just what are your thoughts on Benson, the player in the prospect?
Again, one of my absolute favorite guys to watch. So you mentioned the athletic testing here. He measured in at just over 6 foot tall, 216 pounds, ran a 4.39 40-yard dash, 92nd percentile for the running back position. Excellent 10-yard split, 83rd percentile for the 10-yard split, 74th percentile for broad jump. Vertical jump, not all that exciting, 37th percentile, but I'm just going to put the little blinders on.
It doesn't matter. The vertical jump is one of the, it just doesn't correlate.
It doesn't correlate. Yeah, it does not matter. What you love to see is that 40-yard dash, and that complements exactly what you saw in the football field with Trey Benson. So what I loved so much about him, he kind of molds two of these archetype running backs, the explosive, speedy type running backs, with the guys that have contact balance for days and a propensity for forcing missed tackles. All of these things, they're going to translate very well to the NFL field. Like every time Trey Benson touches the football, not only does his speed make him a potential home run hitter every time he touches the ball, he's also got the power that you love that, can sustain runs. Even if he maybe sustain some tackle or sustain some contact here closer to the line of scrimmage, he's got enough power to run through that contact and maintain his balance through those runs that I think is just going to add this extra element to his game that, I mean, he can beat you in so many ways. He's also a pretty decent pass catcher. And, now we're going to throw him into an offense with Kyler Murray, a very, very proficient rushing quarterback here who we already saw it like last year, averaged almost 30 rushing yards per game here in his return from the torn ACL. Like, we know the upside, I think, for this offense could be tremendous. You add in Marvin Harrison Jr., the scoring potential is going to be exemplified tenfold, I think, in the seasons to come. There's just not a ton I can find that I don't like. And I mean, for a guy that's being drafted right now as RB 17, Marcus, I think I could make a better argument for him closer to the RB 10 range than I could at RB 20. And this just comes down to my adoration for the prospect, the fact that he can win in so many of these different ways. And you know what? He comes out of college, doesn't have a ton of miles on the tires either. That was a big plus for Jonathan Brooks. Same thing for Trey Benson here. And guess what? He's healthy day one. I think Trey Benson, as soon as he gets this opportunity, he is going to have it tenfold. And James Conner, again, he's another year older. He's already
he's gonna be gone by the not dead. He's gonna be off this roster by this time next year, right, Kate?
well,
Now they'll bring
he's not
somebody
done.
in. They'll bring somebody in, but there's nobody going to be here that's really going to challenge Trey Benson for the starting job, right? The reason why I'm so interested on Trey Benson outside of just the talent, which remember, I mean, you and I both love Trey Benson as a prospect. I had him as RB1 in this class. I just think this is an ascending offense, right? Kyler Murray's healthy. They're adding Marvin Harrison Jr. Trey McBride is one of the best young tight ends in the league. And let's not forget that they also went out and signed Jonah Williams to a big contract this offseason to solidify that right tackle spot. They're moving Paris Johnson Jr. back to the left tackle spot. The offensive line is still not great, but it's certainly in a better spot than it was at this time last year. I just want to be in on this offense in general. And if I can get the starting running back on an offense that I think could go from, like 25 points per game, like 25th in points per game, all the way up to like 11 or 10, I'm buying. So yeah, I'm all in on Trey Benson.
Well, and here's the thing, Marcus. I've kind of looked at these two running backs as 1A, 1B. Jonathan Brooks in the pre-draft process was my RB1 by a mile, but that mile, I feel like every time I turned on the tape for Trey Benson, just got a little bit shorter, The gap between them closed.
And they were drafted pretty close. I think Trey Benson went at 50 Jonathan Brooks went around 50 and Trey Benson was at 73. It's not a big gap. That's
a
less
gap
than a full round.
Yeah, the gap in terms of draft capital, not that different.
Nothing.
You look at the overall trajectory of the offense. I've been very complimentary of the Panthers this offseason in terms of what they did with the resources they have, but you got to be like out of your mind if you're not telling me that the Cardinals day one have a better offense. Jonathan Brooks, I don't know how quickly they're going to ramp up his workload necessarily coming off of his own torn ACL. So like from a situational standpoint, these guys aren't in much of a different position, no. I think, even in terms
I just like Arizona's offense better. That's the thing. I like the long-term outlook of Arizona's offense significantly better than I do Carolina's.
Yeah, I think like there is absolutely no way. I think by this time next year, Trey Benson is a top 10 dynasty running back. I'll put my mark on it now. Stamp in the ground, flag planted. Trey Benson's my dude.
I think he could be even higher than that, to be honest with you. So we are both all in on Trey Benson. Go buy him now before that price goes up. Let's talk about another rookie who was drafted on day 2 that has a path to playing right away. We'll discuss Marshawn Lloyd next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer that it gets to tip off. With killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. I love Game Time. It's what I use when I go to events. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater events near you. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. And get this, you can save even more when you choose a section and you let Game Time choose your exact seats. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Are you having to turn down the volume because of all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Kate, let's talk about Marshawn Lloyd, who was selected by the Packers in the 3rd round of the 2024 NFL Draft. Why are you buying him now?
Marshawn Lloyd is a very interesting prospect because, like, my immediate reaction when the Packers drafted him was like, ugh, what a waste, right?
Yeah.
They just signed Josh Jacobs to this big time contract, and that had me a little bit nervous. But I do think Marshawn Lloyd could be in a big time position to make an impact. Now, you look at his overall trajectory here. So he played for 3 seasons with South Carolina. Finally, in 2022, led the team in carries, but didn't get more than 111. So, like, yeah, not necessarily like a full-time workhorse role here. Transferred to USC for his 2023 season and had a breakout campaign. 820 rushing yards, 7.1 yards per carry, 9 rushing touchdowns. And now that I'm like going back and I'm putting out the feelers on Josh Jacobs and what this situation would be, obviously Josh Jacobs going to be a good thing for the offense, but I think Marshawn Lloyd, an excellent prospect coming out this past season, 16% breakaway run rate that ranked 9th among running backs, 41% missed forced tackle rate that ranked 6th among running backs, averaged 3.97 yards after contact per attempt, while also leading all running backs with a 77% missed forced tackle rate on receptions. We've seen his role as a pass catcher in terms of efficiency grow between his 2022 and 2023 season, averaged 17.8 yards per reception in a big way because of that elusiveness. Now, the biggest block here is going to be Josh Jacobs, Marcus, but I don't think that the way that they structured this deal really makes it any more than a 1-year contract.
Bingo.
So if you're telling me Marshawn Lloyd, this excellent prospect who has been getting rave reviews, by the way, from the Packers staff here through their offseason program so far, this could be a much quicker pathway to work for Marshawn Lloyd than I think it really looks at face value.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think Josh Jacobs is only going to be here for a year, 2 at the most. You're talking about somebody who has like over 650 touches over the last 2 years, who has dealt with a chronic knee issue, who will turn 27 next offseason. Well, that's not old. I do have some concerns about Josh Jacobs and what he's going to look like at the end of his career. Again, if you're looking with us on YouTube right now, he's due like a $6 million roster bonus on March 2025. I think it's pretty likely that the Packers don't give him that unless he produces at a Pro Bowl or all pro level. Again, signed a 4-year, $48 million deal. I think a lot of that is just noise. It's really like a 1-year, $10-ish million deal. I also think Marshawn Lloyd's just going to get on the field because Josh Jacobs, one of the things that we've learned about Josh Jacobs over the last couple of years is when he's on the field, he's going to play a lot. but you could sign up for him missing 2 or 3 or 4 games a season like he did last year. What happened last year, the final 4 games of the year, he couldn't play. Zamir White comes in, plays as well or better than Josh Jacobs, and now Zamir White's the starter in Las Vegas. I won't be surprised if something similar happens with Marshawn Lloyd this year, a day 2 pick who the Packers obviously like quite a bit. 220 pounds, runs in the 4.4s. Not many of those guys around in today's NFL. I'm buying Marshawn Lloyd not only because I like the prospect and not only because I'm concerned about the long-term outlook of Josh Jacobs, but also because I want a piece of this Packers offense. It's very similar to the conversation that we were just having about Trey Benson. We want players on offenses that are ascending. And obviously Green Bay's is ascending. Like that's not rocket science. It's not a profound take right here.
The spiciest take you're going to hear on Locked On Dynasty this week, folks.
It's not. Right now, you can get Marshawn Lloyd at RB 38 in startup drafts. I actually wouldn't be surprised if he's going to go a little bit higher than that. But like players going ahead of him include Aaron Jones, Brian Robinson, James Conner, Zach Charbonnet, Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler is going ahead of Marshawn Lloyd. Like that just makes no sense to me. I'm buying Marshawn Lloyd.
Yeah, Marshawn Lloyd, again, that pathway to a workload, like you mentioned, whether it be the contract for Josh Jacobs, which, that savings, it's very much like a backloaded contract where, starting in 2025, the Packers can move on and save toward their salary cap. So, there's some dead money attached. Of course, that dead money goes down year over year. So just their savings goes up year over year. But I can't imagine with the way that the contract is structured that he's on the team beyond 2025, even if he does get that roster bonus. But again, even if he's on the team, right? Is he fully healthy? What does his overall efficiency look like as he continues to age? I do think that Josh Jacobs in an excellent position here to produce in year 1 in this ascending offense. I think this is by far the best offense Josh Jacobs has played on in his entire career, despite the fact that it's a very young and inexperienced one. So would I be surprised if when Josh Jacobs is on the field that he's RB1 and he's going to be the fantasy back to roster here in 2024? I won't. But I do think it's going to be very hard to keep Marshawn Lloyd off the field for a long period of time, especially with the buzz we're already getting. Get in at the bottom floor pricing right now, because I do think that, again, this is one of those running back classes. It wasn't very hyped, but there are several really interesting landing spots that could be conducive to Marshawn Lloyd being a perennial RB2 for the duration of his rookie contract easily.
Does AJ Dillon scare you at all?
No. Do you think AJ Dillon should scare me at all? No. I love AJ Dillon. I love his thunder thighs, but no.
AJ Dillon was brought back on essentially the vet minimum contract. He's fighting for a roster spot. I think Marshawn Lloyd is going to walk into a situation where he's the RB2. Maybe they'll have a fake competition for that job, but let's not get it twisted. By October, Marshawn Lloyd is going to be the clear-cut RB2. And if and when Josh Jacobs goes down because he's had some problems with his knees, Marshawn Lloyd is walking into one of the best and most rich, backfields in all of the NFL. There's just going to be opportunities like crazy for Marshawn Lloyd to put up fantasy points. So buy him now while the cost is so cheap. Okay, we've talked about 2 rookies, Trey Benson and Marshawn Lloyd. How about a veteran, kind of, that could potentially see their value go way up in 2025? We will get to Keaton Mitchell next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and in the NHL. And FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. We know the Boston Celtics are now going to be in the NBA Finals. Is it going to be the Mavs who are up 3-0, or is it going to be the T-Wolves coming back from a 0-3 deficit, which has never been done before in the history of the NBA? My money's on the Mavs. I can't wait to see this Mavs-Celtics finals. I know the Celtics are big favorites right now. Don't necessarily agree. I think I might be putting a little bit of money on those Mavs. Can't wait to watch. So go visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and make every playoff shot count with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. On today's show, we are breaking down 3 running backs who are going to see a major increase in their average draft position over the next 12 months. We've discussed 2 rookies. Who was the one veteran, Kate, that could get a big ADP bump?
This one's a big time question mark, Marcus, but I think we got to talk about Keaton Mitchell, running back for the Baltimore Ravens, who unfortunately suffered a catastrophic knee injury that ended what was an absolutely incredibly promising rookie season here. Now, Keaton Mitchell coming out like, he's an undersized dude. I don't think anybody expected him to make a huge impact in year 1. And yet he was one of the league's most efficient running backs as a rookie among running backs with 25 or more carries. Led the NFL with 8.3 yards per carry, almost a 40% first down touchdown rate, 5.6 yards after contact per attempt. Again, first, ranked second in the league with a 31% missed forced tackle rate. Every advanced metric that we can analyze pretty much has Keaton Mitchell as one of the best running backs in the league. Consider him like the less flashy Jaylen Warren, but guess what? He's on a better offense. He is going to run alongside Derrick Henry, who was paid for a 2-year contract here with the Baltimore Ravens. But Marcus, I'm looking at Keaton Mitchell and the potential upside here. We keep saying it every year. Derrick Henry can't last forever. He can't do this forever. I have to envision that, yeah, even if his efficiency is greatly increased in this Ravens offense, running alongside Lamar Jackson, I think similar to the way the Titans kind of cut back on his snaps overall, they're going to get a rotational guy in. Keaton Mitchell won't be healthy for the start of the 2024 season, but I have to envision as the year goes on, like it's going to be hard if Keaton Mitchell is healthy to keep him off the field.
I would agree. And the thing with these injuries at like running back, sometimes we overreact to players missing the first 2 or 3 games of the season. And we really knock their value to a point where they become a screaming value. And I think that's the point with Keaton Mitchell. He's being drafted right now as RB 48 behind J.K. Dobbins, Kendrick Miller, Gus Edwards, Jerome Ford, Ray Davis. This is an offense, and this is a common theme of this podcast, that's going to be really, really good because Lamar Jackson is really good. And that's going to create a lot of opportunities for these running backs. I'm okay waiting on Keaton Mitchell. Like if he doesn't play in September and he misses a couple games in October, it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. We know what the long-term outlook and ceiling could be for Keaton Mitchell. There is a chance or a possibility that he is the RB1 on this team going into week 1 of 2025. We'll see how much longer Derrick Henry is there. But behind Derrick Henry and behind Keaton Mitchell, there's really not anything, right? Like there's really nothing else on this roster to be concerned about. So yeah, I feel great about stashing Keaton Mitchell now, hoping that he gets healthy in time for the middle part of the season, and then seeing what he looks like in year 2, and if he can get back to how he was playing in November and December before the injury, because he was one of the most explosive and most dynamic players in the NFL before his injury. I just want to see that again.
Yeah, I want to see him get on the field, but like again, it doesn't really matter, right? You're not going to necessarily be trading for Keaton Mitchell in a hope that he's going to contribute here for you in 2025. We know he's on the smaller side. He's 5'8", 179 pounds. Like he's not going to be the goal line guy here when they're in these critical situations. It's going to either be Derrick Henry or it's going to be Lamar Jackson on a design run. Like he's not going to get any of these valuable touches here. But what you're hoping for is an increase in touches as he gets healthy. Again, on the smaller side, but he's so explosive, has that breakaway home run potential. And, again, for being an undersized guy, this is also an offense that's tied for the fourth highest yards per attempt average. This is an offense that sixth highest percentage of yards before contact. Like, this offense offers plenty of wiggle room for these running backs behind the line of scrimmage to create space, get into open field situations. And once Keaton Mitchell does that, he's going to be gone. So, like, if you're going to have an undersized running back, the injury doesn't overly scare me. It was kind of a freak incident. It wasn't a situation where he's overworked. Like, there are a lot of reasons to buy into Keaton Mitchell, especially at this draft cost. Like, if we're drafting Devin Achane as a top 10
Exactly.
dynasty running back, you got to be all in on Keaton Mitchell at this price.
All right, so let's do a little exercise here. Let's assume I'm going to give you some different scenarios, and I just want you to tell me like the range in which you think Keaton Mitchell will be drafted next year. You can just call it like RB30, RB35, or whatever. So let's assume Keaton Mitchell doesn't play at all this year. The Ravens decide, hey, we're shutting you down for the full year. We want you to be completely healthy going into 2025. Where would he get drafted?
If they shut him down entirely, I'm going to be honest. I know that, dynasty managers, we like to preach that we're like this patient bunch of people. We're not. I think he's going to fall down the ranks pretty tremendously, Marcus. I have to imagine that he's going to be closer to RB50 than he is RB30. In that kind of range, and let's be honest, he's already there. Like a Chuba Hubbard, a Ty Chandler.
So you're talking about like RB55-ish.
Yes, and I
Okay.
think that's a pretty realistic. I don't think he's going to lose too much value just because of that, but I can envision him kind of just sitting right around RB55, RB65. And at that price, like, you don't need him to play this year. You don't need him to contribute on your roster. He's a high upside flex play that when he does see the field.
Let's go through a couple more. Let's assume he comes back in late October and he gets 7 to 8 touches a game. Where is he being drafted next year?
Oh, I'm gonna be honest. I really like it's very dependent, I think, on how good he looks coming back. If he comes back from the injury,
let's say he looks 90% as good as he did last year.
okay. Then I could probably see him being somewhere around RB40.
Okay. Let's say he comes back and he's as good as he was last year, and now he's getting 14 touches a game.
14 touches a game. Dang, Marcus.
Top 25?
Yeah. Like, I think that yeah.
This is kind of the point for me. Like, worst case scenario, Kate, is that he doesn't play at all this year and we're dropping him 7 spots in our rankings. Like, that's the worst case at all scenario. I think there's a good chance that he does come back in October, gets a small workload to start the season, then it ramps up as we get to November and December, and then they bring in somebody like, name your guy, Alexander Madison, or better than that, right? And he's going to be the guy that's getting 14, 15 touches next year. And now we're talking about him. We said top 25, but like, I'm looking at players like DeAndre Swift, who's being drafted at RB16. Why couldn't Keaton Mitchell, in a better offense than what Chicago is, or where we project to be, why couldn't he be a top 16, top 15 running back next year, assuming he stays healthy?
Yeah, I think to that point, just there's so much more to gain, I think, than there is to lose, regardless of the outcomes, regardless of the usage. Like, again, if he does see the field and he is healthy, then I do think you're going to see that increase his value tremendously. Whereas if he doesn't play, again, I can't really picture him losing much value just based on the names kind of in that range. You pretty much have everything to gain and nothing to lose by trading for Keaton Mitchell at his current price.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, we are going to answer your Twitter questions with Matt Williamson. So every day, just make sure you check out that show. Go download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Go follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Majuk. Make sure you check her out on Pro Football Focus and Behind the Steel Curtain. I'm at Marcus _Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.